last regular item, 611. It was a 1:30 item for consideration, tentative approval of annual cost of National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA weather radio, NWR on Mount St Helena. This item from Supervisor Owen and Sabatier. Sabatier.
Yes. So Supervisor Owen and myself met with Chief Wink, with the city manager of the city of Clear Lake. It had been brought to his attention during the last Boyles fire of some of the issues with the broadcasting of that radio tower to the South Shore area. I know in speaking with different folks, I'm getting different feedback from what our conversation, it was all the way through to Clear Lake Oaks, from the Cobb and Middletown area all the way through to Clear Lake Oaks. While in speaking with Lake County Fire Protection District, less so with the Clear Lake area. But either way, there's a large area of South Lake County that is not covered. If all other levels of communication goes away, these towers would have a capability to continue for our first responders to be able to communicate, also collect weather information, which we don't have in that area. I'm learning as I go. For this specific topic, I know that Middletown Rancheria had obtained a grant that would have paid for the equipment in the first 3 years of rent. The rent would be renting the infrastructure that already exists on top of Mount St Helena, which our sheriff also rents out for some of their other communication. And it would have cost about $16,000 per year, and that grant funding would have covered the equipment in the first 3 years. What was asked was who's paying for it afterwards. The grant, from what I understand, did not allow us to use the grant until there was a better commitment for the future costs of the rental, and there was we were unable to find, or those involved in the conversation were unable to find where the continued funding would come from. So today I am looking to see if we can, I didn't want to re-engage with our federal partners, Mike Thompson's office, Congressman Thompson, CAL FIRE, and others to again, bring this back to us without having some sort of commitment that we're interested in making this cross the finish line. That doesn't mean that we want to pay 100% of the entire cost. That doesn't mean that we don't want to negotiate, but at least that there is interest to ensure that we have redundancy in our ability for first responder communication to be continued during extreme events, disasters, and so on. And so today, just looking for that, what did I call it? Tentative commitment, in the sense that we don't know what the final cost is, we don't know who might be paying for it, but to reopen those conversations with the idea that we do want to cross the finish line and we do want to make this happen, to make sure that we don't end up in a place where we are unable to communicate during our most sensitive and vulnerable of times.
Yes.
Go ahead, Supervisor Rowan.
While we were looking into it, it sounded like we may be able to get some kind of discount on that as well. That was mentioned while we were in communications on the rental space down, less than 16,000. We're hoping to be able to negotiate something a little less. And then it sounded like we had, I think, was it South Lake County Fire or somebody along those lines might be pitching in on a portion of that, we're hoping. And I was also still concerned about some areas like out Morgan Valley that might still have dead zones, and we checked into it, and if that does occur, we can add to this tower as well to have it, to be able to cover some dead, if there's still some dead zones in some areas.
And real quick, I do believe that, I can't see Zoom, but I believe that Chief Paul Duncan and our OES, Leah Suttlet, is available as well to respond or add to the conversation. If you could, please.
Okay, first Supervisor
Yeah.
Pyska.
This is something that I've been talking with Chief Wink for years on, and I don't disagree that we need this coverage. I am not sure that this is the best, I don't know if the county is the best entity to be taking this over. I feel like this is NOAA equipment, this is a NOAA broadcast. They cover all the other equipments and towers, even coming into our county. I'm sure Mendocino County doesn't pay for it. So I'm okay with having the conversation, and maybe this is something that we take to the disaster council, but I'm not okay with just saying that we're gonna pay for it right now. I feel like there's ways for us to engage with Congressman Thompson and get this in NOAA's budget, because this is their responsibility. This is not our equipment. This is not our broadcast. This really is nothing, but we identify the need and go from there. And I did get an email from Leah, and I think there are some changes in technology that are coming too, so it may not be good for us to, first of all, we'd have to reapply for grants, and there are FEMA grants open because of the LA fires for all of California. We're not quite sure what that looks like right now because a press release disappeared off the FEMA website.
It's happening these days.
Yes, so we're not exactly sure when that's open or not, but she has started conversations with Cal OES about that. But it looks like there's some changes in technology. If we're paying for it, are we responsible for the maintenance? Like, there's a lot of questions there. So I would just really prefer to have this all under NOAA. And it could be that this happened, it could be we're in this situation because of the change from being with the Sacramento Weather Service and now we're in Eureka. And so maybe we need to engage Eureka to figure out who pays for all of those towers and the equipment. It says that they don't have other entities paying for this, which means it's got to be in their budget, which means we need to just get that engagement happening with Congressman Thompson to increase their budget to cover it. So he's well aware of the need. This conversation is not a new conversation. It's old. I would just suggest maybe we take a deeper dive into this at the Disaster Council, but in the meantime, have our local OES looking at some of these other options.
And I do not disagree with your comments. If there's new technology, and we need to negotiate for what's the best term in getting this accomplished, the facts of the matter is there are some dead zones in communication, and we need to look at trying to figure out how to fix that for future disasters. And again, don't disagree with anything that you just said.
Yeah, my comments on this, I was actually involved in my previous job when the Disaster Council was looking at, I don't know if it was exactly this project.
It was similar.
But it was very similar. Even got to the extent of radios that were purchased and handed out. And then I'm not sure exactly what happened from there. But I do have a lot of questions about the reach. I mean, do we have a map of where this reaches to? What are the dead zones? I think there's a lot more research to do with NWS up in Eureka. I know I regularly listen to the NOAA weather radio that is broadcast from Laughlin Ridge in Mendocino County that reaches the Lakeport area of our county. It was my understanding that that's their facility. They maintain it, they pay for it. So I think this is important. I think we need to be working on it. I think it's a resource we should have, but I think we need to do more follow-up investigation on all of these details and possible funding sources. If for some reason it's not NOAA, then maybe there's other sources that the OES can, or the county can access. So I think it's important. I want to work on it. I just think we need to do some more work before I'd be ready to agree to spend X number of dollars that I don't know if that's even in the range right now. So that's where I'm at right now.
Mm-hmm. Do you have information or a direction we should go to? Because I'm new. Mm-hmm. So can you point us in the right direction on where to get the information to do the research? I had asked about newer technology too when this was brought to me. However, the redundancy and something kind of low tech in case there is, some disruptions with the higher tech were a couple of things that were brought to my attention, and it's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you have a direction that we should do some research in, anybody, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, well, what I recommend is, and we've got Leah on, I think we listen to what she's got to say, give her direction to look into this further. We have a disaster council meeting coming up in March and have a presentation there, just because at disaster council, we're gonna have the cities represented as well as fire districts, county department heads, and the police,
Yeah,
both police.
law
chiefs.
enforcement. It's a
Oh,
wide
and
range.
CHP. So it's a really appropriate conversation to have there, and then we can figure out next steps. What Vice Chair Rasmussen was talking about was under Sheriff Martin, there was talk about developing some kind of alert system like this, and there was public surveys that were done, and the public didn't want to spend money on it. So I'm really hesitant to locking us into something that could be indefinite when we've got possibly some other ways that we can accomplish the same thing. So that's what I recommend those next steps to be.
So I think we have Leah on, and maybe we should get some thoughts from her at this point. Or Chief Duncan first. Chief, you want to go ahead and speak? Chief Duncan?
Absolutely. So I do support this, adding the radio up to Mount St Helena. I think that would be huge for our area to get that coverage down in the South County and to those other areas of Clear Lake that are not covered currently. I did speak with Chief Wink regarding the NOAA funding, and they currently fund all their towers as it is, but there's no funds for expansion. So any expansion we need to do would be funded on our own or through another option. But for right now, I think the best thing is speak with Leah, see if we can obtain just a direct staff to get the costs and options for funding and whatever the newest radio technology. Sounds like they've changed brands of radios, but it's going to be a similar cost. But have a staff report generated through OES that has the options that the county can pursue for funding going forward, and the current technology needs of the site. But support the idea and the process.
Thank you, Chief. And Leah?
Good afternoon. I'm not sure I have too much to add to the conversation, but I did pull up the coverage maps from National Weather Service, and it looks like our gap is also a gap in the portion of Colusa and Yolo County. So maybe to add to the discussion is if there's anything that could partner with them. But certainly it's possible to take this to Disaster Council and look into it further and examine all the options that are available.
Leah, are you able to share your screen so we can see the coverage map?
Yes.
What was the other county besides Colusa?
Yellow.
Yolo and Calusa. Supervisor Sabate, do you want to comment now or wait until? Okay.
So I'll gently scroll out here so you can get a bigger picture of the state and kind of beyond. And then if you guys can see it okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Can you zoom back in?
Yep. So on the way in, I won't go too fast because it moves. You can get a better view too of the towers that are servicing what we already have for coverage and see that they're not really condensed here. But then, I don't know if you want in a little bit more, it jumps faster.
Is the white the non-covered?
Okay, so it's most of the city of Clear Lake too, so.
And I don't know if that represents, if we put something on Mount St Helena, what the coverage would be. And I think that's what we also need to
Yeah.
find out is what is the extent of a broadcast from that elevation with all the other slopes that might be in the way, even though I hear because it's low tech, the slopes aren't, it's kind of like AM radio versus FM radio.
Correct, and I think that that's possible to get a projected
Yeah.
coverage area. Any further, Leah?
I think part of the discussion, if we were looking at the whole picture too, would be to maybe check out cell phone coverage and how that's evolved over the last 5 to 10 years. At the same time, this discussion has been kind of going on, because some of the same technology or similar technology is, we can send out the WIAs. None of it's 100%, but it might be worthwhile, especially with the expense that we're looking at with this, just to kind of overlap it and see if maybe there's already enhanced coverage from the increase in cell phone towers that might kind of cover what we're looking for here, what we may get out of a tower. Just part of the discussion.
Thank you.
And I think before we have our meeting with the Disaster Council, we should have, do some outreach to Congressman Thompson's office too, and figure out, maybe we just get the budget increased so that they can do their job with their equipment. I think that's the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So put in a request to NOAA to,
Well, I think they're saying, NOAA's saying they don't have the budget to increase, that they do this for every other
well,
tower
I
and
understand,
equipment.
but I meant we'd first ask them and then ask them to ask for an increase in their budget, or
No,
would we go to them?
We asked Congressman
Okay,
Thompson,
to increase it.
because he can help get that federal
Thank
budget
you.
increased.
Yeah, I agree that's a good step, and I'm still in favor of having this in front of the Disaster Council to get more, also help get more public feedback, from the community. If
Sure.
it's discussed once we're ready.
But in the meantime, we could have Matthew do some outreach and find out,
Correct.
if that's something that can happen.
Supervisor?
I just got off the phone yesterday. I think it was yesterday that I spoke with Luca from Mike Thompson's office, so he's definitely aware that this topic is being discussed. In fact, he was already talking to me about the topic, and so definitely on their purview, has been for a while because of past conversations. I'm happy to pass this on to the Disaster Council. I think it has the two supervisors who are most impacted by the lack of coverage. And so I think any discussion that leads to a solution, no matter what that looks like, that way we can either get options brought back to us if we need to figure out what our role is, or if it gets done for us. But I definitely do not want this to drop with no solution. I think we need to keep pushing just to make sure that we can get that coverage. Oh, I did want to add one last thing. In all of the agencies that were listed, I'm not certain if Middletown Rancheria is part of the Disaster Council, but I definitely want to re-invite them into the conversation because they had already had access to grants to help out. And I think that they are just as impacted as our county unincorporated jurisdictions in the lack of coverage. So I think that their voice and their participation is necessary.
Now, tribes aren't part of the Disaster Council currently, but we will bring them into the loop.
Mr. Carter?
And Matthew Rothstein brought to my attention that we're also in talks with Congressman Thompson's office about community project funding for this, if available as well. So we're looking at other angles as they become available.
Can we get a 99-year lease?
I agree with Supervisor Sabate. I don't want it to drop. I just think we need to do some more
Yeah.
work. So I'm good with doing that follow-up that was described. I think we have consensus on. Do we need a motion?
Did we do public?
Yeah,
I haven't done public comment yet.
yeah, it can be done by consensus direction of staff.
Okay, at this point, with no further from the board, I'll open up to public comment. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak on this item? Seeing none, Johanna, do we have any hands on Zoom? Hang on a second. No hands on Zoom? Okay, I'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the board for
And
anything further.
in looking at Johanna, I just want to make sure we're clear on our consensus. We're asking admin staff, Matthew Rothstein, to reach out to Congressman Thompson's office to start the conversation, to see what's possible, and for requesting if Leah Sodelik can go ahead and organize a future disaster council where this is discussed and followed up on. Is that correct for the consensus?
Well, yeah, and if she could do some more investigation too before the disaster council.
Yes, I'll put it on, or consider disaster council once we're ready with any of that
Yep.
other follow-up.
Just wanted to be clear. Thank you.
So I think we have consensus on that.